look at some of the background of k0s. K0s, like the other two distributions, is distributed as a single binary. So it's self-contained, which means any vulnerability or performance issues can be fixed directly within k0s. Now, when you look at the architecture of a k0s, it's slightly different to the others that you'll see. And you'll see that over here, we've got a true controller and worker separation within the k0s architecture. Within k0s, we actually have only the management control plane components in the control. It's actually installed as a bare bones Linux process, so everything is pretty streamlined and runs natively. And then when you look at this in an edge and IoT deployment, you have we see folks essentially have a regional site deploying the control planes, and then the edge sites only runs the workloads. This way, you have 100%, well, close to 100% of all the available workloads for just your worker pods and your worker your workloads, as opposed to having additional components on your edge sites taking up additional compute. Now, when you start looking at multi-cluster management, we actually have a new project out called k0smotron. It's spelled k0smotron, but we call it k0smotron. And utilizing cluster API as well, you're actually able to simplify your cluster operations, and you can run this on any Kubernetes and reduce this cluster sprawl and control plane overhead. And the k0smotron operator will create and manage k0's control planes in that cluster. So if you look at the differences between using k0smotron and without using k0smotron, traditionally, folks will run into the issue of cluster sprawl, where you have a management cluster where you have your controller nodes and you also have the worker nodes, which then connect to clusters, which also needs controller nodes within the cluster and the workers within the cluster. So you're adding additional overhead in your workers, and you have multiple controller plane components that you have to manage in all of your different clusters. But now with k0smotron, we're able to deploy the controller components into, again, the mothership that can connect to multiple workload clusters with only the worker components in there. So this way you have a standardization of your control plane, and also it reduces the footprint of your workloads.